You said one thing, and this is maybe showing my naivete, if that's the right word, more on the broker side than the lender side, but you talk about opening up more wallets. What do you mean by that?
I mean, traditionally, you have institutional money behind
Mm-hmm.
lending, mortgage lending. Let's just think about blockchain and leveraging blockchain as an example. So
Yeah.
you create a token or even you leverage Bitcoin or Ethereum or something like that,
Yeah.
to lend against. But even then, you need a way to move it, and you need to move these assets on a fractional or at least individual basis.
Yes. Yep.
And we were probably headed in a direction where there would have been some sort of unified blockchain rail, whether that ended up being Ethereum or something you see in the US or
Mm-hmm.
something that maybe the Bank of Canada initiated and actually built. But then, we have the FTX fiascos and things like that
Yeah.
put a massive pause in this type of innovation. But if you actually think about trying to solve a lot of the challenges in lending, blockchain solves a lot of it. You have immutable contracts. Everyone can reference the data. I won't name the latest Canadian bank to get fined, but there was another posting this week, and it's all stuff that doesn't happen if the mortgage is registered on blockchain, because that information is 100% accessible by anyone.
Immutable, distributed. Yeah.
And anyone that needs to have access, I should say, right? It's not open public view for everyone, but if you're moving that transaction or that mortgage or that book of mortgages, you can easily access it. There's a natural fear behind it because of, like I said, I think some of these crypto plays that went horribly wrong.
You have to separate it, and I think you know this, but this is just my opinion, and I'm a big Bitcoin guy, I guess you could say, so it gets me kind of riled up when I hear this, where you got to separate the technology, the underlying technology, from the bad players, right? It's like, yeah, FTX wasn't a good thing. No one's saying that's a good thing, but you don't throw the baby out with the bathwater, right? Like the underlying platform, the blockchain that exists, the proof of work, the proof of stake, all these things that are really interesting and good, it can solve a lot of these types of problems. You don't want to group them all together.
A simple use case for blockchain. How many times in the process is ID verified today? In fact,
Too many.
the regulators went out of their way to say it's not done enough, so we're going to double down on it and make sure everyone's doing it properly.
Yeah.
It really needs to be done once, and then the chain of custody of that information needs to be accessible by everyone involved. Blockchain's a great use of that.
Needs to be accessible and verifiable, right?
And if you had that individual's ID on blockchain to begin with, where it's a lot safer, you as a consumer or individual can decide how and when it's accessed and used.
Right.
Way more secure than what we do today. And then that information is shared with your mortgage broker who's done their work, or realtor, whoever's at the front of the line, and it just passes down the line. And eventually it hits the lawyer and it funds. You can do that for income verification. You can do that for property search, title, all these things that happen at every stage multiple times over and over, adding massive amount of time to the entire process. All of that could effectively go away.
Yeah. So what is it, if we wanted to say, I'm throwing a bunch of hypotheticals at you, but, we want to implement that and have some innovative service in Canada today. You think it's more, and I have a bit of an opinion on this, but I'm curious yours, is it a consumer confidence problem / education, or is it a regulatory thing? I think it depends which technology you're talking about. I think today for blockchain and crypto, I think people are very scared of it. I think it's a consumer confidence thing. I think AI, we're more on the spectrum of we're going into dangerous waters on the regulation side, and I'm sure we could open up that whole rabbit hole of AI. But yeah, that's my take on it right now, where it's, even if regulators said, go have fun, go do your blockchain ID verification, I think people are a bit scared of it. And I guess that's another, interesting wrinkle with all these types of innovations that we're talking about, is it's not enough for the software company to do it. It's not enough just for the regulator to say, okay. Consumers got to trust it too, right? And I mean, that's not just blockchain, that's across the board.
It's the same with open banking, right? It's just,
right.
This general fear around this information being quote unquote online. Well, the information is already online.
Yeah. Chris is going to see what I bought last week, right? Or whatever. Yeah.
Exactly.
Yeah.
But if you go to look at Australia and you look at the EU, they've adopted that technology.
Mm-hmm.
Coming back to blockchain again, if you look at that particular case, you're taking what's available information today for anyone who decides they understands how to hack something. I mean, I don't know about you, but I bank with 4 different institutions, and I've gotten 3 of these letters from them saying your information may have been accessible, right? Your information's out there. So in my opinion, I think you would want to find a way to secure it better. I do agree with you. It's a consumer education. I think this is deeply rooted in Canadians. It's the same reason why so many customers continue to go back to the bank for their mortgage,
Mm-hmm.
right? Is what you've always done. That brick and mortar is what gives you confidence. And until we can change that, none of this changes. You can change technology, you can change the processes, you can bring everyone on board, but until, the average Canadian is comfortable with the concepts,
Right.
in some ways we do ourselves a disservice in saying, mortgages are the biggest transaction of your life and you need to have an individual there coaching you along the whole process. I agree with some of it. I don't completely buy into that whole statement. Ultimately, the only thing that matters for you, I think, is that you have a place to live and there's a roof over your head and you're secure, you're safe. And how that ends up being, I think there's some variability as generations change.
Yeah.
You may see this become more of a digital process in the end than it is today.
Takes a lot of different forms. I was just going through something today. I'm actually getting a new vehicle and I'm calling someone up because basically I need to get proof of insurance. That's just a whole story in itself. But I did want to talk to a person, but it's not because I wanted to talk to a person. It was because I wanted an answer quickly. Right. And I think it goes back to, we've been alluding to it a bit, underline this conversation. And you talked about a reason for your success is, understand those root problems. Is it truly that someone wants to talk to a person? And I think in some cases, yes, right? I talked to Dean Lawton. I don't know if you know Dean out west. And on the podcast, he said, yeah, make it as digital as you can, but there's a likelihood, non-zero, that something could go wrong and people want to talk to someone when that thing goes wrong. Totally understand that. But those other steps, why don't we digitize that? And like in my case, it's not that I want to talk to a person. I wanted a quick response. So how do you use tech, the best way for that? So I think it's completely right.